A Juneteenth bus tour teaches Central Floridians about local Black history. You're listening to The Wrap from Central Florida Public Media. I'm Brendan Byrne. It's been about a year since Florida endorsed new Black history standards that caused controversy around the country. Since then, people have been looking for new and creative ways to learn Black history. That includes a bus tour in Eatonville, where participants learned about some of the most important Black historical sites in Orlando, including one mom who has a new perspective on how Black history is taught in the state.
It is imperative that they know about it. I asked my daughter, what are you guys learning in history? What are they teaching you at school? And like she said, it's just the general basic stuff.
Teaching Black history as Central Florida marks the Juneteenth holiday. That's ahead on The Wrap, the big stories this week from Central Florida Public Media. But first, these headlines. Florida has appealed a federal judge's ruling that blocked state restrictions on treatment for people with gender dysphoria and wants the ruling put on hold while the appeal plays out. Last week, a judge ruled that a 2023 state law and regulations barring the use of puberty blockers and hormone therapy to treat children for gender dysphoria, making it harder for transgender adults to access care, are unconstitutionally discriminatory. The notice of appeal filed this week, as is common, does not detail arguments the state will make at the Atlanta-based appeals court, but Governor Ron DeSantis recently disputed the effectiveness of the treatments.
You're trying to change their basic biology, which you cannot do. How you're born is what you are. And so I think it's about, are we going to be rooted in truth as a society or not?
In the ruling, the district judge wrote that gender identity is real and likened opposition to transgender people to racism and misogyny. This week, clinics in Central Florida began offering hormone therapy once again, including 26 Health, says clinic practice director Latoya Crittenden.
We have a lot of patients, even some of the patients I spoke with, they have not received any care since they've been with us, so they are happy and willing to come back to us. I feel like it's going to be huge as time continues.
Florida and other Republican-controlled states have approved numerous laws and regulations in recent years focused on transgender people. The U.S. Department of State is opening a long-sought passport office in Orlando. Central Florida Public Media's Joe Mario Pedersen reports.
Orlando is one of 6 sites in the country receiving a new passport office. The new office differs from a passport counter, which typically would take a person's picture and 6 weeks to process. The new office will allow people to schedule an appointment, arrive, and leave with a passport on the same day. Previously, the only passport office in the state was in Miami. Democratic Congressman Maxwell Frost has been working with the State Department to secure the office and says this is a huge win for the state.
So whenever a hurricane would happen, if that office was shut down for a few weeks, we had no offices across the entire state of Florida. Well, that all is about to change.
Maxwell's office, the City of Orlando, and Orange County will spend about a year working with the federal government to determine the office's location. Joe Mario Pedersen, Central Florida Public Media.
In the city of Orlando's District 5, nonprofit leader Shaniqua Shan Rose will replace suspended City Commissioner Regina Hill, at least temporarily. Rose won a special election runoff Tuesday with 54% of the vote, defeating former state representative Tavares McCurdy. Rose will serve as interim commissioner following Hill's suspension after being arrested on charges of elderly exploitation and fraud. Hill has pleaded not guilty. Rose will serve until the end of Hill's term unless she's cleared of the charges before then. The city council district covers a sprawling area of Orlando that includes Paramore and parts of downtown. These stories and more on our website. Visit cfpublic.org. Central Florida Public Media's Engage was in Eatonville discussing efforts to preserve the history of the oldest Black incorporated municipality in the country.
There are definitely challenges, but the essence of Eatonville is still there.
Hear more on our website, cfpublic.org, or subscribe to Engage wherever you get this podcast. It's been about a year since Florida endorsed new Black history standards that caused controversy around the country. Since then, people have been looking for new and creative ways to learn Black history. Central Florida Public Media's education reporter Danielle Pryor was at a Black history bus tour in Eatonville over the weekend.
About 40 people joined the Juneteenth Central Florida Black History Bus Tour over the weekend. June 19, 1865 marks the day when the last enslaved people in the U.S. learned they were free. The goal of the bus tour was simple: to highlight important local history that most Floridians don't learn about in school.
I realized I actually was a fan of history. It just wasn't the history
13-year-old Caitlin Hurd was on the tour with her mom, Yolanda Powell.
I've always been like a history buff, a history geek. So learning about my own state, which I barely knew anything about, was an eye-opener.
Caitlin's entering 8th grade at Southwest Middle School in Palm Bay. She says she hasn't learned a lot of Black history in school.
We just learned about the basic Martin Luther King, Rosa Parks, stuff that happened years and years and years ago. Yeah, never anything in Florida, really.
I caught up with the mother and daughter at the Eatonville stop of the tour. The township is the oldest Black incorporated municipality in the U.S. The tour group had already visited Ocoee, the site of the 1920 massacre of Black residents, and Washington Shores, one of the first Black communities in Orlando. 74-year-old Charlotte Kendall was also on the tour. She says she was active in the civil rights movement of the 1960s and fears not teaching this history means it could be forgotten.
It's just so important to me to know history. And my dream is that someday it won't be Black history. It'll just be history of all of us.
At a state board of education meeting last month, dozens of people spoke out against the state's Black history standards that were up for reapproval.
I think we're missing an opportunity to correct historical inaccuracies, specifically descriptions of slavery, where it states slaves develop skills in which...
In the end, the board unanimously voted to keep in place Black history standards that teach kids that, quote, slaves develop skills which in some instances could be applied for their personal benefit. AP African American history is still banned in the state, and the Stop Woke Act limits how teachers can teach race and gender in K-12 classrooms. Eric Smaw works on DEI issues for Rollins College and is a professor of philosophy there. He says that going beyond what's taught in classrooms is critical. He himself has taught a class on African history at Agape Church in Orlando, but he says it's not the same as getting to take a class in school over a full semester.
So I enjoy what people are doing. I participated myself. I think it's excellent that they've stepped up. But I also think it's a shame that where the experts are in the classrooms, the knowledge can't be delivered to students there.
Under Florida statute, schools are required to teach Black history. What people have had concerns about is to what degree. Back on the tour, husband and wife Robert and Anna Beck say nothing should be left out when teaching Black history. They don't want any instruction around any history restricted.
Of course we should know about each other. I don't want my children and grandchildren not to know as much as they can.
As they get ready to head to Paramore, the next stop on their tour, Anna says she hates that we're still having this conversation around whether Black history should be taught in full in 2024.
We should be progressing, not regressing. But I love the state. I love the beauty. I love Florida. I'm so glad we moved here. But that piece needs some work.
Danielle Pryor, Central Florida Public Media.
That's it for The Wrap this week. This podcast is produced by Central Florida Public Media with assistance from News Director LaToya Dennis and Digital Director Ryan Ellison. I'm Brendan Byrne. This is The Wrap.